Welcome to Montreal Rocks. We are so happy to be in the home, almost the studio, of Loryn Taggart. We are so happy to be able to talk to you. This is an exciting time, exciting project. Tell us about this album. It's The Lost Art of Pulling Through. It's coming out
next Friday. Next Friday.
29th.
Yeah. I'm so excited. I'm so excited for it to come out. It's been probably about a 5-year project at this point.
So we don't count COVID, right? So 3.
Yeah, well, no, exactly. COVID's actually the reason that it was
Part of it, yeah.
paused, and part of the reason that, honestly, what made the album it is. Because originally, this album was supposed to be recorded in Boston, Massachusetts. That reason being because I went couch surfing in 2018 in the States, and I just kind of like bounced from city to city. Boston was the last city that I stayed in, and my couch surfing host was a producer, and we just got along like a house on fire. And after talking about music and travel and friendship and creativity, we decided to record together. And I released a couple songs with him, and then went back to Canada to work and kind of suss out what kind of album I wanted to create. And he said, like, let's record it in Boston. Well, we started demoing things online and just kind of got ourselves sorted for this album. And then our recording date was March 20th, 2020. And I had a Greyhound bus ticket booked from Montreal to Boston, and I was going to, I think, be in Boston for like 3 months and just record. And then the borders closed, so I couldn't get to Boston. And that was really upsetting. That was heartbreaking because I had this track list and I had the whole thing ready. I had an album title and the album artwork and the track list and an idea for the album.
Maybe it's like a wine as it got to age a little bit more and kind of mature.
1,000%. Like, I feel like what I had before, I was like a kid or something. So the album was put on hold, and I had to do it in Canada because I still wanted to make an album, but I didn't know anybody here. I didn't know producers. I was brand new to Montreal. I'd only moved here like 6 months prior.
From Toronto? Or from Alberta?
Long story short, from China. Long story short,
I remember.
I was studying in China, and I had to leave China. It's not for the faint of heart, I guess. It's not the easiest life.
I want to talk about the new album. I want to talk about travel. It's very important to you. I want to put a pin in it because I want to go back.
Nice.
Because when you went to Boston, that was not the first time you were exposed to music. You've been exposed to music ever since you were young. Now I want to take you back to a young version of Loryn. And you're flipping through your parents' CD collection, album collection, maybe 8-track. I don't know what they had back then. Is there any album or song or band that went from something you heard to something you felt? Like it became, like, open your eyes musically to a new universe.
Yeah, I mean, there's the obvious ones like Pink Floyd and the Beatles, which are my dad's favorite bands. And him and I, when I was a kid, used to go on these road trips, these like backcountry road trips through Alberta, where we would take a weekend and we would choose a new town, whether a small town, ghost town, mining town, abandoned town. And we would drive, and he would kind of introduce me to a new discography of a new artist, whether it was Beatles or Pink Floyd or Zeppelin, Bonnie Wright, Anna Popovich, very bluesy. And he would give me the full history of this artist and play every album by them. And at the end of this trip, I was like an expert on this artist, and he was music defined, this person. And so he kind of, it's hard to describe, but the way that you asked that question was so awesome because he made music something that you should feel or create or be. He wasn't talking about this music like it was, you should know this for your musical education. He shared it with me because it was so important to understand it.
And you can both bond over the experience of, of listening to it and interpreting it in a way, because
Mm-hmm.
every song will be different to different people.
Yeah.
I'm sure you felt at least an emotion, but there might have been something where, that's something that you shared with your father.
Mm.
But there might have been a point in your life where you found something that kind of you can call your own. Maybe somewhere like maybe a rebellion. And you're like, well, I'm gonna like this type of music.
Mm.
But that's kind of what I'm really interested, because of your sound.
Mm-hmm.
And your sound is such an old soul sound.
Thanks.
And I want to understand where that came from. What was the origin? So there must have been a time where you just listened to something and just hit you differently, and you kind of latched onto it.
I think because my family supported music in the household so strongly. There was
Guitar
always
collection, the whole bit.
Yeah, there was always music playing. There was always music playing when someone was cooking breakfast or making dinner. It was just always playing. Mom was always singing. Dad was always playing guitar. Dad had a music room in the house where it was just a room for music, and he had his vinyl collection and cassette collection and CD collection and a couch, and you sat there and you just listened to music. Music was really, really important. My older brother was a musician. Mom was a singer. It was really supported. It was really important. And then I'm trying to think if there was a moment. I mean, I can think of one particular moment that I knew I wanted to be a musician.
Let's explore that.
Yeah, I mean, music always came really naturally. I learned guitar and piano by ear, self-taught on both, and music or singing as well. But wanting to be a musician, it was the Juno Awards of 2008, and they were in Calgary, Alberta that year. And I won a radio contest to go watch the red carpet of the Juno Awards. And on the red carpet, there was like a radio DJ that was asking questions about the music industry and asked something about who's won the most Junos. And I'm 13, but I knew it was Anne Murray. And I answered the question. He said, "Do you want free tickets to the show?" And seeing the Juno Awards which is the Canadian Grammy, was the most exciting moment of my life. And that was the year that Feist won for her album, The Reminder. And watching her win for that album did it for me. I saw her do that, and then she performed. And it was the first, for me, in my experience, in my upbringing, it was the first time I'd seen a musician like that, represented like that, winning everything. It was all about pop, and it was all about blonde pop, like blonde pop musicians. This was the first like folk, soulful.
Yeah, she was different.
She was different for me, from my experience. She was different.
Didn't
finally
fit the mold.
Yeah.
Which ends up being a good thing in the end.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I think that's, and we're going to talk about your outline. I'm going to get there right now, but
Sure.
It doesn't fit the mold, and that's a good thing.
Oh, thanks. That's nice.
But it started out of a deep loss.
Yeah.
Trauma, in a way.
Mm-hmm.
Losing your father is going to be traumatic. At the end of it, I mean, this is where you started, with trauma, loss. At the end, where did you find yourself?
At the end of the creating of the album, honestly, I think going through the grief while creating an album at the same time was the best gift. Because I just got to feel it all in recording and writing, in hearing the music back, in dedicating a lot of things to him, in writing songs for him, in writing every time I felt like I was so grateful that I had something to express. I mean, originally my dad passed while I was in the middle of recording a song called The River, which I released in 2020. Mm-hmm. And I was in the studio when he passed, recording that song. And I didn't want to keep recording. My mom helped me, gave me the confidence, or I guess the permission. I'm not really sure what the word is, but knowing my mom was comfortable with it, or kind of saying you should do it because that's what he would want. Mm-hmm. I finished recording that song. Then I took a long break from being able to record, but I knew I wanted this album done. I'm there's never a good time to lose somebody, but these things that I went through at the exact same time, losing my dad, recording an album, and getting married all at the same time, gave me so much strength. I'm really grateful that all those things happened at the same time, because it was I needed all three to happen to do them all successfully. It's such a weird thing to say, but
I haven't lost a close parent, so I don't know how that feels. I can't put myself in your shoes, but I'm assuming there's got to be some guilt, because you're trying to mourn, but also you're trying to write some happy songs too. How did that process work? Were you able? I mean, your mom gave you permission to record that song, and I definitely want to re-listen to that song with this knowledge, because I want to listen to it with fresh ears, knowing the story that you just told me. But when it comes to that little bit of feelings of like, am I allowed to have happy music when I'm grieving?
Absolutely. I think after this album, or like during this album and through this loss, I'm such an advocate for healing properly and being happy through it, and healing is such a roller coaster. There's no one way. It's linear. It's not linear. I mean, it's like you have really, really good days and you have really, really awful days, and you feel like you've moved on and you're over it, and then you crash again. But what I didn't want for this album was it to sound like the grief I was feeling. I didn't want that. I didn't want to sit at a piano and cry. I mean, I did, but I didn't want it to be a grief album. I wanted it to be
celebration,
pulling through, like actually celebrating the life, especially.
I mean, that's the title of the album.
Well, exactly. Well, especially because my dad was such a music lover, and music defined in human form. It had to be an album that sounded healing and happy and good, and the subject matter throughout the album is quite sad. All of it's quite sad. Like every song deals with something that you had to pull out of, they had to pull through, but I wanted it to be music that made you feel good about doing it, or hopeful. Even Tell Me How, the second track on the album, and where the lyric "The Lost Art of Pulling Through" comes from, it's a really sad song, but it's so gospel-y and groovy and hopeful, because that's what healing feels like. It feels like you're just kind of laying, I don't know, like you're sitting there and you're just letting the air toss you back and forth. And I wanted a song to sound like that, where it's just kind of, I'm just kind of letting the wind and life toss me around, but it's always getting better, because it's always going to get better. And I didn't want to listen back to this album 10 years from now and go like, oh, wow, I was so sad the whole time.
Thank you for doing that, because it's definitely something that puts a positive spin on making the effort to go through those emotions. It's a hard journey.
Yeah.
But you can pull through. You've done it yourself, and the album is a testimony that it can be done, and it should be done, because a lot of people they hide those emotions, they repress them, and they deal with it for their whole life. It comes out in all kinds of different ways, sometimes through addiction and all kinds of other weird things that we shouldn't have to deal with, but that's the case.
Well,
now,
exactly.
The latest single is Lighthouse.
Yes. Yep.
And lighthouse is a symbol. It's a beacon of safety. What is the thing that makes you feel safe in your life?
I have very cliche answers, but my husband and my mom, my very beautiful relationship with my family, especially post losing Dad. We've gotten much closer as a family, much more vulnerable with each other. Our communication skills are very good. But close relationships make me feel safe. My home makes me feel safe. I feel safe with myself. I traveled for so long solo. So I've had to rely on myself a lot in scary times and in tough times. So I feel safe with me. I'm a homebody. I like to be home. So just my walls and my people in my walls. That makes me feel safe. People and my beautiful little cat Nanaimo. Yeah, she's good. She's good for my head for sure.
You talked about travel. Now, your other song, Scoundrel. Scandal Monger.
I love that song.
That was the first song that got me introduced to you, and I fell in love with it. I love the story of backpacking, and actually telling all your secrets to a complete stranger and seeing how that played out. And we talked about this in one of the previous articles, but I want to know a little bit more about travel.
Yeah,
travel is a big part of your life. What was one place that was the most memorable for you, and what is one place that is a bucket list destination?
The most memorable.
Where should I go?
Oh, I feel like everyone will find themselves in New Zealand. I think everyone needs to take time and really explore it. I'm a huge fan of Lord of the Rings, so I moved to New Zealand to do all of the Lord of the Rings packages, I guess. I lived on North and South Island.
On Lord of the Rings.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's the reason I moved there as a...
Flight of the Conchords, New Zealand rocks.
Oh, yeah. No, yeah.
New Zealand rocks.
Yeah. Wellington, New Zealand is the heart of it all. And I lived there for a while. And I worked at a cafe in Wellington. And then on weekends off, I would just go and do like Lord of the Rings excursions and hikes, and hiked where Mordor was filmed, and in Auckland where Hobbiton is filmed. And then I moved to the South Island. I lived in Queenstown, which is where I wrote Scandalmonger, because Queenstown's an absolute zoo. And then I did all these Lord of the Rings excursions. So New Zealand, I think everyone's going to find themselves there. China was the most surprising. China is my favorite place in the world. The culture was amazing. Food was amazing. I loved people. I loved learning Mandarin. It was so much fun to learn another language there. My bucket list, I'd love to see Easter Island. Reunion Island would be really extraordinary. Just kind of places not on the normal touristic path. I'm just so curious about the planet. I mean, I wouldn't say no. I would not say no to an all-inclusive.
I'm going to show you, speaking of travel, I want to show you your first Instagram post.
Oh, no.
So, we're going to show it in the article, but it is from...
When was that?
It should be here.
2012.
So it's a picture
I was a baby of New York City.
So tell me the story about that day, if you remember.
Am I in it? No, no, I wouldn't. I would have taken it. 2012 was the year I graduated high school. Give my regards to Broadway was the caption. So I was a musical theater kid. I was a huge musical theater person. I loved Broadway. What's that?
Hello Dolly, I believe, was one of the albums you shared with your parents.
Yeah, my mom and I went to go see Hello Dolly live in Calgary. I love Barbra Streisand. I love Broadway. I love New York. I think my mom and I went to New York for my graduation present when I graduated high school. I was like lead in my high school musical. I believed I was going to be the biggest Broadway star ever just because I loved it. What a dream. But, you know.
You never know.
You never know. Damn, that's so cool.
Well.
I love that.
Okay, Broadway. Let's talk about...
So funny.
Bowie.
Oh, yeah. That was awesome.
Where you met somebody that I know that I interviewed before, Gabriella.
Oh, my God.
A wonderful soul.
Gabriella is one of my favorite human beings in the world. I love Gabriella. She actually, this is such a cool tie-in. She did all my violin for the song The River when I lost my dad. So she's been this like beautiful presence kind of through all of this as well. She also came to my wedding. She also did the Bowie show with me, and she was also featured on this album. So Gabriella's been like a consistent joy in my life for everything.
YouTube video and I go, there's Gabriella. That's so cool.
That's so crazy. Yeah, she's amazing. She's so amazing. Yeah.
So we got travel.
Yeah.
All these things, all encapsulated in this album. We really think that everybody should really listen to it. Take the time to, we have boxes of CDs here. We have albums, vinyl, which I love. I want to kind of just go through a few little rapid fire questions just to kind of get your feeling on certain things. We talked a lot about death and pain. If you had the power to reverse death of one artist, who would that be?
I feel like the obvious answer would be Bowie. But I feel like I just like learning about him through music and through interviews. I don't know if we would get along if we really spoke, the two of us, because I feel like his ideals are so beyond what I could fathom that I like being at a distance. Yeah, exactly. I like the mystique.
I was just talking to someone and they mentioned Prince. And again, he goes, it's one person that you do not want to meet.
Yeah.
Because of the mystique. You
yeah,
want to
exactly.
Keep that intact.
I almost don't want to know that he's normal. I had a friend who I guess interviewed or just had a chat with before I did the Bowie show, who used to be in his band. And I asked her like a lot of personal stories about him, what he was like. And apparently he was always like Bowie.
Yeah.
You know, he always had such a beautiful air about him, and he knew he was an artist. He just wasn't anything but. And her stories are actually really, really fascinating. Even around the dinner table, it was just had the artist air. And so I almost kind of just want to leave it at that.
Yeah.
But another artist that I'd want to talk to, probably a songwriter. Who would I love to talk to? John Prine. Would love to have a conversation with John Prine on where he grabs his lyrics. Songwriters more than, I mean, of course they are artists in themselves, but I
poets of the music world.
Yeah. I do like writing lyrics. It's not always my strongest part of my music creation, but I always love talking to songwriters, and I'm like, what cup is being filled for you that you're coming up with these lines? Like, where does it come from? So I think, yeah.
For you, when you're doing your writing, do certain songs just like flow from the universe onto the paper, like through you, or are some more like piecing together experiences in life, or sometimes are you even not even talking about yourself or your experiences, but creating a character to live those experiences, real or imagined?
Yeah. When I write alone, just myself, they're always personal experiences. Every song I've written alone happened to me, or I'm going through, or is about a person I know, or is about an experience I went through, always. When I co-write with somebody else, we start with personal experiences and we kind of expand from there to more general, more society, more the general concepts. Like if I talk about a breakup, we'll do more generic side of breakups or feelings. In terms of music and melody, I dream a lot in melody, and I'll wake up and I have voice recordings. Tell Me How was from a dream. The Vow was from a dream. It kind of comes and goes in different places. The River was written because I was actually trying to learn an Alt-J song, and I kept getting the chords wrong, and the chords ended up being the chords for The River.
You got them right.
Exactly, they're right for me. Can come from anywhere. But I seldom just sit down and can come up with it. It's usually when I'm going for a walk and I'll record something on my voice recorder, or a melody hits. Like you kind of let something open when you're bored.
Blindside you in the most weirdest.
Absolutely. I'll be at work and I have to go to the bathroom and like voice record something. But it usually comes when I'm bored, or usually comes when I'm in like non-editing, non-judgment mode. So when you're quiet, bored.
I like what you just said there.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people in our day and age are constantly bombarded by noise, social media, radio, always. And I think to be creative, you have to give yourself silence. You have to give yourself boredom. And like a walk is a perfect example when things happen.
Exactly.
I don't want to take too much of your time. I thank you so much for the time you spent. I'm going to ask one last question.
Please.
Because I know that you enjoy tattoos.
I love tattoos.
I have, the tattoo question.
Sorry.
The tattoo question is, if you can only keep one tattoo, you're only allowed to have one tattoo, which one would you keep and why?
I hate that question.
I was saving this for Dallas Green, but I haven't been able to interview him yet.
Oh
So
my
I'm gonna use
God.
it on you.
Oh, that's such a hard question because I was talking about this with a friend the other day, why we have tattoos, what's the reason. Mine are, I love storytelling. I love collecting stories. I love journaling and songwriting. Tattoos are stories that I collect. So I'll go see like an amazing show. So I'll get something about that musician tattooed, or a story, or a person. Oh, no. My Feist tattoos slowly becoming a well-known symbol. I have two answers, because there's one that should be the answer and then one that I actually love. The one that should be the answer is on my arm. It says, "Way to go, girl," in my husband's writing. That was my dad's last words to me before he passed.
Oh,
and he said, "Way to go, girl," because I proposed to my husband and I told him that. And he said, "Way to go, girl." That was the last thing that he ever told me. He died 2 days later. So "Way to go, girl" in my husband's handwriting. That should be the answer because it's beautiful and meaningful. But on my rib cage, I have the guitar tab to "Let It Die" by the Foo Fighters, the opening intro to the tab. And I think it's so cool. I'm a huge Foo Fighter fan. And that song, "Let It Die," I have different albums and songs that kind of followed me while I traveled. Mm-hmm. So when I hear an album, I think, oh, that was that time that I was traveling through Spain and met that person. And "Let It Die" by the Foo Fighters was a song I found with me for 6 years of backpacking. And it found me at the time that I needed it. Foo Fighters always made their way, and then I got to see them while I was backpacking a few times. And then they played Verdun like a month ago, which is crazy. But there was a moment during the show where it was quiet and there was just a beam of light over Dave. And he hadn't played the song yet, but you could almost feel the first note in the air. And I was like, he's gonna play it. I can hear the first notes. I can feel the atmosphere of the intro or something. And he started playing it, "Let It Die." And I knew that I'd get a tattoo of it the next day, just in that moment. That was a strong, impactful moment in my life. I was going through a lot at that time, going through some heartbreak, going through some weird existential, not sure where I should be living, don't know what country to move to, I'm really lost person at that time, and that was powerful. So the guitar tab to this song on my ribcage is pretty sick.
Now, I've only known you for, what, half an hour, 45 minutes?
Yeah.
From what I gather,
mm-hmm.
You're a strong woman.
Thanks. Oh, that's nice.
I think you live by "Let It Die." I think you allow things to die, more like feelings or events. You're able to go through them, which is the whole album. And I think that takes a certain strength to be able to move forward. You have to you have to let things die. Sometimes it's a feeling, it's a sadness. Let that sadness die while still sending it off. And you can always remember it, but not always living. I think you're progressing through life. You're having these great, huge changes in your life, marriage and all that. And I really think I'm going to re-listen to the album with this new knowledge that you are such a wonderful person that is just able to just surmount these insane obstacles. And I think your travels just show the kind of inner strength that you have just to go on these almost spiritual journeys to find yourself and to maybe even find the things of your personality that you want to let go of and let those die so that you can become a better person.
Oh, that's like perfectly said. Yeah, exactly.
So listen to the album with that in mind. We thank you so much, Loryn.
Thank you.
This has been a great chat, and we look forward to. You have a show coming up. You're going to have an album release October 2nd at the Lion d'Or, which I love.
Yes, nice, awesome.
It's a great little.
You should definitely come. It's going to be so fun.
It's going to fit the music so well.
It does fit the music so well, and it's curated. We have horn section, and it's it's a spectacle. We've curated it nicely. Like it's really special. So yeah.
Be there, get your tickets. We'll have a link in the show notes. And thank you so much for
Thank you. So fun.